I thought divorce was the right choice, now I'm not so sure. Hi, Reddit. I'm Rick, 37, and I've been dealing with a regret that I can't shake. I divorced my wife, Laura, 34, a year ago, thinking I'd made the best decision for both of us. But looking back now, I'm questioning if I made the biggest mistake of my life. It wasn't always like this. Laura and I met in our late 20s when we both worked at the same marketing firm. She was passionate, quick-witted, and had this energy that just drew people to her. We started dating soon after, and our relationship was intense and full of adventure. We traveled together, explored new places, and were always finding some new project or activity to bond over. When we got married, I remember thinking how lucky I was. She was my best friend and my partner in everything. But over time, life's pressures crept in. The workdays became longer, and weekends were filled with errands or just trying to catch up on lost sleep. Laura and I both got promoted, but with that came more responsibilities and less time for each other. Nights that used to be filled with deep conversations and laughter turned into quiet, routine dinners. We both became so absorbed in work that we started drifting, barely noticing the subtle changes. By our 6th year of marriage, I started feeling restless. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt stuck, like my life was on a monotonous loop. I'd come home to a silent house with Laura often working late, and I'd sit alone, questioning if this was all there was to life. Friends would ask why we never went out together anymore or why I looked so tired. I shrugged it off, blaming work, but inside, I felt something was missing. I brought up the idea of needing space to Laura once, half-jokingly, but she took it seriously and asked if I wanted to try therapy. I dismissed it immediately, telling her it wasn't that serious and that things would work out on their own. In hindsight, I can see how much effort she was putting in, trying to meet me halfway and reconnect. But I kept telling myself that she was just as busy as I was, that the lack of intimacy and connection was mutual. By our 7th year, I'd convinced myself that I wasn't happy, and more importantly, that I couldn't be happy with her anymore. I started fantasizing about a fresh start and convinced myself that both Laura and I would be better off apart. We argued more often, and when she brought up the idea of couples therapy again, I pushed back, saying that it was too late for therapy to fix things. We mutually decided to end the marriage, or so I thought. The divorce process was surprisingly fast. We kept things civil, dividing our belongings, and agreeing not to make things harder than they needed to be. My friends and family said I seemed lighter afterward, that maybe it was for the best. And at first, I felt that way too. I moved into a small apartment downtown, telling myself this was a new chapter, and I'd finally have the freedom I'd been craving. But a few months in, that freedom started to feel more like loneliness. There was no one to come home to, no familiar laughter or scent of her cooking. The quiet started to feel oppressive. I remember one particular evening when I came home to an empty fridge and a messy apartment. I felt this hollow pang and found myself wanting to call Laura just to hear her voice. I stopped myself, telling myself it was just a habit I needed to break. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Everywhere I went, reminders of her seemed to pop up. I saw couples laughing over coffee, and it reminded me of our Saturday morning cafe dates. I'd walk by the park where we'd spent so many lazy Sunday afternoons. Each memory felt like a punch to the gut, reminding me of what I had willingly let go of. I started wondering if I'd given up too soon, if I'd let the stresses of daily life blind me to what we had. Then, I ran into her at a mutual friend's gathering. Seeing her felt surreal. She looked radiant, genuinely happy, as if the divorce had brought out a lighter side of her that I'd forgotten about. She was chatting with some guy, laughing in that way she used to laugh with me. It was as if I was watching someone else's life. I wanted to talk to her, tell her how much I missed her, but seeing her with someone else felt like a slap in the face. We exchanged polite hellos, but the warmth we once shared felt like a distant memory. After that night, I couldn't get her out of my mind. I started analyzing every detail of our relationship, wondering what I could have done differently. I realized I had let my frustrations with life cloud my judgment, pushing away someone who had only ever tried to support me. The realization was crushing. I remembered the time she'd stayed up late to help me prep for a work presentation, or how she'd made an effort to plan date nights, even when I was too tired or irritable to appreciate it. I'd taken her love for granted, assuming it would always be there. One evening, after too many nights spent staring at the ceiling, I wrote her a letter. I didn't know if she'd even read it, but I needed her to know. I poured my heart out, telling her how much I regretted the divorce, how I'd let my pride and ego get in the way of seeing what truly mattered. I told her I was sorry for not appreciating her and that I would give anything for a second chance. Days turned into weeks without a response. I found myself anxiously checking my mailbox, hoping for some sign that she'd read it. When she finally replied, her words were kind but firm. She thanked me for my honesty but told me that she'd moved on, that she was finally happy and at peace. It was like a final nail in the coffin of my hope. I realized then that while I'd been wallowing in regret, she had found a way to heal and move forward. The weight of that reality was crushing. I started therapy, something I should have done years ago. Through it, I learned a lot about myself, my fears, my insecurities, and how they had contributed to the downfall of our marriage. I'd been so focused on what I thought I was missing that I'd failed to appreciate what I had. Therapy helped me process my guilt, but it didn't make the regret go away. It's a constant companion, a reminder of the life I could have had if I hadn't been so quick to give up. Every once in a while, I hear updates about her through mutual friends. She's dating someone new, and by all accounts, he treats her well. Part of me is happy for her, but another part aches, knowing that I could have been that person by her side if I hadn't been so blind. Now, every relationship feels like a shadow of what I had with Laura. I try to open up, to be present and engaged, but there's always that lingering regret in the back of my mind. I've learned from my mistakes, but I wonder if it's too late to truly find peace. I don't know if I'll ever stop missing her, but I'm trying to move forward, one day at a time. Thanks for listening, Reddit.